We're going to cover what is the single most important topic in all of Primerica. And it is the beginning of a series that will be a 4-part series, a 5-part series, maybe a 6-part series. And I was thinking about this at about 5 o'clock this morning, what I was going to be saying at the beginning about, the most important topic. Well, almost every topic that gets covered, when I cover it, I go, this is about the most important topic. But usually I say it is about the most, but it really, this one is. Okay? It really, really is. As far as how-to stuff, the only thing on skills and developing skills that is even close to what we're going to be covering over the next 4, 5, 6 series is the series that's already out there on the web of why and how to get commitments. I mean, that one, if you haven't watched that and you are a field trainer, go watch that. Even if you have watched it, you go do 2 or 3 or 4 more appointments, go watch it again, and you will see how you can be making much more money and closing much more people, or a lot more people, and coming around to your way of thinking. But our topic today is on the subject of recruiting, and it's going to be a series. We're going to start our recruiting boot camp, our recruiting workshop that normally I'll do on a holiday, a lot of times on Memorial Day or 4th of July or Labor Day, we'll do a recruiting boot camp. And it is always very hard, and usually they're 4 hours long, and it's very hard to get all the information covered in 4 hours. So we're dividing it up, and we're just going to teach it at 8 o'clock on Saturday mornings until we're done with the book. I encourage you to go to oneteamonedream.biz, that website. Go to the Edge Center. Once you're on that website, under the Edge Center, go to Training Tips. Under Training Tips, go about halfway or a little past halfway down of all the things listed there, and the recruiting workshop book or boot camp book, recruiting something is what it's called, booklet is there, and you can print that out, and you can have something to take notes in, or somebody's watching this on the web, something to take notes in. But folks, we are in the recruiting business, okay? And so we're going to cover from A to Z how to become a great recruiter. Not just how to become one, but how to teach others to be great recruiters, okay? And so we're just going to start out with the beginning of the book, the things that I've got written in the very front of the book. Every successful organization in America became great by recruiting key individuals that led them to greatness. True or false? True. I mean, that's true in basketball, football, anything like that, right? All major companies in America have ongoing recruiting machines they call personnel department. I want to make sure people understand recruiting is not unique to Primerica. Maybe you don't realize that it is a recruiting machine, the personnel department at your quote-unquote job that you have or that company. They know they're going to lose people to other companies through career changes, illness, or even death. So in order to fulfill their objective, they must keep those talented people coming through the front door faster than they are leaving, or they will experience a crisis. You are all the heads of your own company, and you have the same challenge, okay? You're the CEO of your company. You do not work for Primerica. You don't work for me. You are the CEO of your company, and you've got to fill key positions. True or false? True. Now, do a lot of people sometimes not, when they come here, one of their challenges, they come treating this like a job. They come expecting to be told what to do. You got to think like this is your own company and you're running it, okay? It may be on a smaller scale, but nevertheless, it's the exact same challenge. Our goal is to increase our business size. True or false? True. And the only way to do that is to add more agents to our agency. The way I've always looked at Primerica is that I have my own financial services agency. I'm free to develop it into as big an agency as I can by getting people excited about the prospect of having their own agency with no limitations as to the size or profitability. I believe the key is to see clearly, or get people to see clearly, that the business is theirs and only they limit themselves. There are no restraints. Your future is entirely in your hands. Commit to building a huge agency and we'll help you build it. And this workshop is a part, and probably the most valuable part, of teaching you how to do it. Now, before we even get into the training, I want to make sure you all understand how the brain learns and how it retains information. Scientific study, they went through and found this out, okay? This is retention after 24 hours, okay? So retention after 24 hours, how the brain learns. If they hear a lecture, 24 hours later, they'll remember 5% of what they heard, okay? If they're reading something, they'll retain 10% of what they read 24 hours later. Audio visual, where if they're like watching a video and have a book they're going through, they'll retain 20% of that information. Demonstration, where somebody stood up and did like a live role play, so they saw a demonstration of it, they'll remember 30%. Discussion, where you just have a conversation with somebody back and forth, we get to actually ask questions about something that you don't understand, and you have a dialogue. That's what's great about the people that qualify for a leadership council retreat, because there's a lot of dialogue that goes on back and forth of that. That's 50%. Practice by doing. Actually go out and use the techniques that you're being taught. And 24 hours after using it, you'll retain 75%. But teaching others to do all that, you'll retain 90%. Now, your brain stores information different ways in different places. Every seminar, every training, every experience pretty much I have, Stephanie, I am storing it in a part of my brain, asking myself, how am I going to use this to teach others later? So there's going to be folks in here that sit there and they're listening to this information and they're applying it to themselves. They're sitting there going, how can I use this for myself on an appointment tomorrow? Okay? Then there's people that are going in here going, how can I use what I'm learning right now to teach masses of people in the future how to do this? You with me? Yes. And it's going to store information. You will remember more out of this series of teaching, out of any teaching, if Jan is listening to it, not how it's going to help her on her appointments tomorrow, but how can she use what she's learning right now to teach masses of people about it later. Make sense? Yes. Okay. So that's how the brain works. What we're going to be covering in this series is why to recruit. I mean, we're dealing with the fundamentals of fundamentals. Tom Hopkins, greatest sales trainer of all time, people skills trainer of all time, getting people to cooperate with you, trainer of all time, said you ought to go back to basics how often? Once a year. At least once a year. The best of the best, the top 0.5% of people that are in the people business, go back to the basics once a year. I started going through this a day or two ago, getting so excited about not just our brand new people and our new players that are just getting out on their own learning this information, but even our older folks that have been around for a while, that I'm hoping that Mark listens to this with that ear of how he's going to take this and teach others, not just how it applies to themselves, right? So maybe you sat through this boot camp before where you were thinking about how it applied to yourself. It'll be all new to you if you just think about how you're going to use it to teach others, Make sense? All right, so we're going to cover why recruit, PFS uniquenesses. My goal is to get through this part this morning. Who to recruit, the psychology of recruiting, how to recruit, overcoming objections. We're going to give you the answer to every objection known to man in recruiting. And when we get to that point, I'll buy anybody a Diet Coke that can come up with an objection I can't overcome on the spot, on tape, right in front of everybody. So that you're going to see that, you know what? And by the way, I ain't going to make any of that stuff up out of my head. I already had practiced and knew all the answers, right? We're going to give you all the answers. Look at that. There's 3 different pages of that. Recruiting closes, management principles of recruiting, and then prospecting, and how to face-to-face prospect. All of that will get covered in this boot camp. Anybody excited about it besides me?
Yeah.
All right. So, let's get started with the most fundamental of fundamentals. Why recruit? Look, I've used the same analogy 487 times. I need to get a new one, so when we get done today, if you got a new one, tell me about it, okay? On why. But it's the story about the grandmother that's in her, I don't even remember now, she's in her 70s or 80s or whatever, and she true story, it was in the newspaper, takes her two grandchildren to Myrtle Beach, out to the beach, to go out in the ocean. She had never swam before in her life. Her grandkids got caught in a riptide, pulled out, they were drowning. She went in, swam out, got her two grandchildren back, saved her grandchildren. Now, she did not know how to swim, but she knew why she was going in the water. See, the why, without the why, none of the how-to matters. Make sense? Yes. So you got it, so we're starting with the why. So why recruit? First of all, it's a better way to prospect and set appointments. Okay? I mean, if you're in a traditional sales place, you got to be prospecting all the time, making cold calls, talking to people, meeting them, setting your own appointments. Man, if you recruit people, the greenie sets up the appointment. Yes? Yes. Or you help the greenie set up the appointment through three-way calling. One of those two. Either way, it's better than working in a cold market. Yep. Right? Right. And you got to understand that is well, I'll get into how that's a uniqueness in primary care. You understand most people in sales don't have that going for them. You know, I just talked to a person in Washington, D.C. that's in pharmaceutical sales. Pharmaceutical sales. She's got to go make cold calls on doctors, and I know we got several doctors in the room, you know, and I don't want to say that they're arrogant, but they know more than most people. And for some salesperson to get in the door to talk to them is not an easy thing to do. True. Right? And so, man, somebody that's out there in pharmaceutical sales, most of those people that are in that industry are studs. They're animals. They look the part. They're confident because they got to get past all those walls of barriers and get through to the decision maker. Unbelievable. Here, we just recruit the doctor's brother. Go do an appointment. Right? Right. I mean, it is a huge deal. That's why you recruit. It brings down all the barriers, right? Principal does all the 401k stuff. They got to go call on company after company after company after company to finally get through, and they got to usually meet with a company 4, 5, 6 times before they get to the person that actually can make a doggone decision on it. Here, we recruit the wife of the owner, and we just show up and do their 401k. Right? I mean, it is unbelievable. So it's a better way to prospect, yes? Next. It's a I should put far in there, far better way to sell. If all you want to do is sell, even if you don't want to recruit anybody at all, ever, all you wanted to do was sell products, it is a far better way to sell. Look, we did the study. We sent people out. And we used 2 different approaches. The company did this on a big scale, not just us. Went out, here's what they found out. If you used a recruiting approach to set an appointment with somebody, you talked about expanding, you were working with a company, looking to fill positions, anything that was led with recruiting, 65% of the time those people became a client, and 26% of those leads became recruits. If you use products, if you use securities, debt, insurance, PLP, any of the products that we've got, only 46% of the time did they become a client, and only 16% of the time did they come to work. So even if you only want to sell, look how much better off you are leading with recruiting. Right? Now, I mean, some of you need to do a checkup from the neck up on your prospecting that you do because you're talking to people about all the product stuff, and it's okay to talk to them about that. We're going to talk exactly how to talk to somebody. But it's not okay to lead with that. And we're going to talk about that later, okay? But is that a good enough reason just to lead with recruiting? Yes. You know, are we going to recruit people that only want to do debt? Yes. Or we're going to recruit people that only want to do securities. I mean, I see Joe. Now, Joe wants to do more than only securities, but he specializes in that area, right? Okay? But Joe leads with recruiting, and he's going to give himself a lot more credibility to wind up doing securities. I mean, that's just the number. We're going to talk about that more later. I mean, for me, I don't even need to know the details. I just need to know that. Right? Okay? It's the best way to get referrals. Right? I mean, most people want to go out and get referrals, and there's hours and hours of training. There's people that will pay $5,000. You can go take a course for $5,000 for one day that this guy teaches on how to get referrals so you don't have to work in a cold market. And people outside of our business all over the place pay this guy $5,000 to learn how to get referrals. All we do is recruit somebody, and all of a sudden there is 25 to 50, 300 sphere, but 25 or so really good warm market leads to go see, right? And not only do you get the referral, the cheerleader goes with you that gave you the referral. Not only do you get the referral, think about it if you were in just sales and you got a referral and the client was so happy, the client said, well, you know what, would it offend you if I called these people for you? Because I'd like to call them ahead of time and let them know that you're going to be calling. Matter of fact, if you don't mind, I just go ahead and set the appointment for you. Would that be okay? And if I set that appointment for you, if I'm going to do that, you don't really know them that well, and they don't know you that well, and it's kind of uncomfortable when two people meet that don't know each other at first. Why don't we go over there together? And when we go over there together, I'll tell you what, when we ride in the car over there, I'll tell you everything I know about them. I'll tell you their spouse's name, their children's name, what they like most in life, what's important to them, what's not important to them. And then when we get to the front door, when they open the door, I'll introduce you. And not only will I introduce you, I will tell them you come close to walking on water as far as I'm concerned. And no matter what you say or tell them to do, they should do it blindly. And then instead of leaving, I'll go in and sit at the table with you. And when they ask a stupid question, I'll go, that's a stupid question. Just listen to him. And as we go through all the way down at the end, when they hesitate, I'll tell them what you did for me, and I would tell them they would be quadruple stupid if they didn't give you all their financial information. And then after that, I'll even pick them up in my car 2 days later, my gas, my everything, and I will bring them down to the office to experience that thing you called a op meeting, investment, whatever that. I'll bring them down, okay? And then afterwards, I'll go out to eat with them afterwards to reconfirm that they're doing the right thing by moving ahead. I'll be there for you anytime you want to ask any questions about them later. And then when we go back, instead of you just having to go back and close it, I'll go back with you on the close. And I will tell them to do, again, whatever you said to do. And then on top of that, I will tell them they're crazy if they don't do the exact same thing for you that I just did for you. Now, in traditional sales, is that a dream? Yes. No, that's a fantasy. That doesn't exist, right? But in Primerica, that's what we do, is recruiting a better way to prospect. Yes. That is a big deal. Treat it like what it is, a privilege, rather than a necessary thing that you have to do in Primerica. I mean, I'm probably giving away part of my talk on the uniquenesses, but people just don't understand what the heck they got their hands on. It's not your fault. You've never been in business before, maybe. You've never been in sales before, and so you just think that everything is like Primerica is. You know, what would be good is if we made everybody for 30 to 90 days quit their job, go in the real world with a quote-unquote cool company that advertises on TV all the time and let you see what the real world is like for a little while. Then you'll come back here. It's kind of like maybe we send you to a third world country for a while, let you live there for a while. Now let's see you protest once you get your butt back in this country again. Right? Okay? So, I had no idea where I was going with that, other than it is the best way to get referrals. Yes? Yes. All right, next. You're always in a warm market. Okay? I don't need to, I mean, that is a big deal. Most people in traditional sales spend 80 to 90% of their time prospecting. Literally. You're taught. If you go to even Hopkins, if it's not Primerica type thing, you go to a general thing from him, any trainer. They're going to tell you need to spend 80 to 90% of your time prospecting. My goodness, here you just need to spend 80 to 90% of your time doing appointments, because you should. If you're recruiting and in warm markets, that thing rocks, yes? Yes. It gives you greater business persistency, or QBI, which is quality of business. I'm not going to hurt newer people's heads with what that is, but it's a percentage of business that stays on the books. Just because you got somebody to say yes and give you a check or give you a routing number doesn't mean they're going to continue to stay with the program, right? Okay, well, you got to have 70% or better QBI, or you can't be a regional vice president. So here's the deal. You recruit somebody, if they hang around a few meetings, are they much better client? Yes. Because they're educated, right? Yes. So they're a much better client. They're not going to drop their policy. They're not going to quit their loan. They're not going to stop that IRA. They're not going to, right? Because they have that internal knowledge. You have access to the website. We have communication with them whether they're here or not. All that kind of stuff, right? Yes. So it gives you much better business persistency, which, anybody here experienced a chargeback yet? Okay? Okay, if you haven't, you will. Okay? And it's much nicer to not have those. Yes, it is. Recruit them, and you ain't going to have them. That's why I'm anal about recruiting. Who do I recruit? Everybody. Okay? Especially if they don't want to come to work. We'll talk more about that later. Okay? But it just gives you better QBI. Is that a good thing? Yes. Okay? It provides unlimited income. Unlimited income. You have the opportunity to multiply your time. If you have a sales job, and I meet people all the time, like I've got people that are coming up to my house right and left right now, and they're basically the sales people for the contractors, okay? Because I got a lot of construction and different stuff going on at my house. So the sales people for the contractors will come out to sell the job, right? Well, there's only one of them. That person gets paid on a commission. Okay, he sells, he eats. If he don't sell, he don't eat, right? But no matter how much that, how hard of a worker that person is, there's only 24 hours in a day. Right? You can't get no more than 24 hours in one human being's day. If you go recruit people, for every one person you recruit, your business has another 24 hours in a day. Another 24 hours in a day. You recruit 10 people, there is a potential of 240 hours to be worked in your business without you working. Right? I got about 6,000 licensed people. How many potential hours do I have in a day? Rob said too many. No, I don't have enough or I wouldn't be back working. No, I have enough that provides the next thing. But there's an unlimited income. You get that? You need to understand, you buy a franchise, territory. You're in sales, territory. How many people have been in sales before, went and built up a territory? Who's done that? Okay, after you built up the territory, they changed the territory. Who's had that happen? See, they do that to make you go continue to develop new stuff. They're best people. They're always messing over because they're going to go in and develop, and about the time they're going to be able to relax a little bit because they're going to have some repeat sales. They recruit the young person. They're establishes a relationship's already established with the customer. They give the new person all those clients just to work the residual part of that, change the territory, and make the good person go work all over again. They can't duplicate themselves, okay? Here, it's unlimited income. We do not limit the number of people you recruit, okay? It provides security, okay? And recruiting is the only way that provides security. Tim Stiles don't need to work, right? Tim Stiles is the guy that recruited me. Tim Stiles, I'm his only licensed human being. And he's making $400,000 or $500,000 a year. and soon to be $1 million a year while he sits out at his home at Cedar Creek. Is that pretty good security? Yes. Well, I don't know how good a security is it. What if Shane gets hit by a Mack truck?
Rob Rice buys it.
No, my wife would not allow that. But there's 80 other vice presidents for him to still be overriding. Right? Security, yes? Most of you know I didn't work for 15 years. Was that pretty good security?
Yes.
Right? Okay, so it provides securities. And you're building a company within a company. You do get ownership here. The only way you get ownership here is for you to build an organization. You have to have 3 successful vice presidents. Basically, 3 vice presidents are making $100,000. So you've proven, so that the way you actually own something, you own the cash flow over that, of that, for the rest of your life. You can will it to your children, but there's no ownership until you've built a business, because there's nothing to own. You know, unless you develop vice presidents, if you quit or you go away or you die, what will happen to your business? It goes away too. It's worthless. There's nothing to own anyway. But you develop 3 successful vice presidents and you're here for 5 years, grow your business for 5 years, you have ownership. Okay? So that's the way that you get ownership. Number 9 reason of why to recruit. Because the number 1 recruiter is always, how often?
Always.
Always. The number 1 producer long term. And the number 1 producer is always the number 1 money earner. Now, a lot of us have a lot of reasons for being here. Good reasons. Keep our priorities in order. God, family, business, right? But if we weren't getting paid, most of us would not be here at 8 a.m. on a Saturday. Right or wrong?
Right.
We're money motivated. We want to do the right things with that money, but we want to make money. By the way, I want to dispel any myths whatsoever. This needs to be highlighted. Anybody that's watching this, no matter where you live in the country, this needs to be highlighted. The number 1 recruiter is what?
Always.
Always. The number 1 producer, long term. The number 1 producer should say always is the number 1 money earner, long term. Now you got to put things in perspective too. Different states have different licensing laws. You with me? So things may run a little bit different. For example, the number 1 recruiter that's recruiting 100 people a month in the state of Missouri versus the number 1 recruiter who's recruiting 100 people a month in California, the one in California, even though they're recruiting the same amount of people, will make more money. Here's why. It has nothing to do with state or living arrangements or any of that. You have to go through 40 hours of pre-qualification, what do they call that? Licensing class. 40 hours, and there's not weekends. Most of the time, these people got to take off work. For most people, it's a 12 to 16 week process every night for a few hours before they can even take the test. You with me? So if you see something where you see somebody that's making a lot of money and they don't look like they're recruiting as much as somebody else, in their environment, under their state regulations, the number 1 recruiter in the state of California long-term is the number 1 producer long-term, and the number 1 producer long-term is the number 1 money earner long-term. You with me? Okay? So just be aware of that. But so, number 1 recruiter equals, bottom line, number 1 money earner long-term. Okay? There's a spikes up and down and all that kind of stuff, but you look over a long period of time, number 1 recruiter is always the number 1 money earner long-term. Make sense? Yes. Here's the biggest reason Shane recruits for himself personally, so he doesn't have to anymore. That's why you recruit, so you don't have to anymore. Look, do I have to recruit? No, I'm recruiting like a maniac, but I don't have to. It's unbelievable how much easier this thing gets when you ain't got to do it no more. It goes to like playing sports like a hobby, man, not a hobby. I mean, you know, you can be the, well, I won't even go through it, but bottom line is fun, all right? So you look, you recruit, so mark Mark recruits so he gets out of the vet clinic, gets that thing sold, and then never has to work another day, right? Salespeople are unemployed how often? Every day. But see, recruiters, man, if you recruit enough people, you never have to recruit again, right? You never have to do anything again. So, good enough reasons on why?
Yeah.
Great.